The alarm screamed through the halls of Sentinel-7. Red lights flashed on every wall. Commander Daniel Cross ran toward the command center, pushing past officers and crew members who moved in every direction. He reached the main deck and stopped. The view screen showed something that made his stomach drop. Hundreds of ships filled the space around them. They were black and covered in sharp angles. They looked like weapons given form. The Vexari had come. Admiral Korath stood at the center console. He was a Thelian, tall and thin with gray skin and 4 eyes that blinked in sequence. His voice was calm, but his hand shook as he gave orders. All stations report. I want defensive positions now. Daniel moved to his station. He pulled up the tactical display and felt his heart sink further. The enemy fleet numbered over 300 vessels. Sentinel-7 had 42 ships to defend it. The math was simple and terrible. "Admiral," Daniel said, "they're jamming our long-range communications. We can't call for help." Korath's 4 eyes closed for a moment. "Then we hold until help comes on its own." The Vexari were known throughout the galaxy. They came from the Outer Rim, where stars were few and resources were fewer. They had built their empire on conquest. Their soldiers were bred for war from birth. They stood 8 feet tall with 4 arms and skin like armor. No species had ever defeated them in ground combat. And now they had come for Coalition space. The first attack hit within the hour. Vexari ships moved with terrible speed. They cut through the Coalition defense line like it was made of paper. Daniel watched 3 friendly ships explode in the span of 10 seconds. "Pull back the outer fleet," Korath commanded. "Form a defensive ring around the station." It was the right call, but Daniel knew it only delayed the end. Sentinel-7 held 10,000 soldiers and 50,000 civilians. They had nowhere to run. Ambassador Lisa Grant entered the command center. She was a human woman with short gray hair and sharp eyes. She had spent 30 years building bridges between species. Now she watched those bridges burn. "I've been trying to reach the Coalition Council," she said. "The Vexari are jamming everything. We're alone." Korath turned to her. "Can your people send reinforcements? Any ships in this sector?" Lisa shook her head. "Earth's fleet is 3 days away at maximum speed. We have a small frigate docked here. That's all." The Thelian admiral made a sound of frustration. "1 frigate. Humanity sends 1 frigate to guard a border station." Daniel felt anger rise in his chest, but kept his voice steady. "That frigate has held this post for 2 years without incident, Admiral. We didn't expect an invasion fleet." "No one expects the Vexari," Korath replied. "That is how they win." The battle continued for 6 hours. The Coalition forces fought hard, but they were outmatched in every way. By the time the Vexari pulled back to regroup, 17 friendly ships had been destroyed. The enemy had lost only 4. Daniel sat in his quarters that night, staring at the wall. His tablet showed casualty reports. Over 2,000 dead in a single day. And this was just the beginning. His door chimed. Lisa Grant stood outside. "May I come in?" He nodded, and she entered. She sat across from him and said nothing for a long moment. "Korath thinks we're going to die here," she finally said. "He's probably right." Daniel looked at her. "You don't seem scared." "I've lived a long life. Seen a lot of things." She paused. "But those civilians down in the lower decks, the families with children, they deserve better than this." Daniel thought about the faces he had seen during the evacuation drills. Mothers holding babies. Old couples gripping each other's hands. Kids who didn't understand why everyone was so afraid. "There might be a way," he said quietly. Lisa raised an eyebrow. "I'm listening. Before I took this post, I worked in Earth intelligence. I saw files that were classified above my level. One of them mentioned something called Protocol Titan. I've never heard of it. Almost no one has. It's old, from before we joined the coalition. I don't know the details, but the file said it was our last resort if humanity ever faced extinction. Lisa studied him carefully. And you think this qualifies? 50,000 civilians trapped with no way out and an enemy that takes slaves? Yeah, I think it qualifies. She was quiet for a moment. How do we activate it? I send a coded message to Earth Command. 3 words. They'll know what it means. Will it work? Daniel shook his head. I don't know. I don't even know if Protocol Titan still exists. But it's the only card we have left to play. Lisa stood and walked to the door. She stopped and looked back at him. Send it. Daniel waited until she left. Then he opened a secure channel to Earth. The message was short and simple. Activate. Protocol Titan Dot. He sent it and sat back in his chair. The message would take hours to reach Earth through the jamming. More hours for any response to come back. And even then, he had no idea what would happen. But something in his gut told him that he had just set something in motion. Something that would change everything. Outside his window, the Vexari fleet waited in the darkness like a pack of wolves circling their prey. They had won every war they ever fought. They had crushed every enemy they ever faced. They had never faced humanity's true strength, and they had no idea what was coming down in the depths of the station. Civilians huddled together and prayed for rescue. Soldiers checked their weapons and prepared for a fight they couldn't win. Admiral Korath studied tactical maps and searched for options that didn't exist. None of them knew that light years away, a message was racing toward Earth. None of them knew about the secret that humanity had buried decades ago, but they would learn. Soon, everyone would learn. The message arrived at Earth Command 18 hours after Daniel sent it. It passed through 7 relay stations and 4 security checkpoints before landing on the desk of Admiral Claire Morrison. She read the 3 words and felt the blood drain from her face. Activate Protocol Titan. Claire was 62 years old. She had served in the military for 40 years. She had seen wars and disasters and every kind of crisis that space could throw at humanity. But nothing had prepared her for this moment. She picked up her secure phone and made one call. Prepare my shuttle. We're going to Luna Base 7. 2 hours later, her shuttle touched down on the dark side of Earth's moon. The base was small and looked abandoned. Only 3 people in the entire government knew it existed. A young officer met her at the landing pad. His name was Lieutenant Kevin Brooks, and he was the only permanent staff member at the facility. Admiral Morrison, I received your message. Is this really happening? It's happening. Take me to him. They walked through empty corridors lit by dim emergency lights. The base had been built 50 years ago during humanity's darkest hour. A time before the coalition, when Earth stood alone against an enemy that wanted to wipe them out. The Crethani had come from a distant galaxy. They saw humans as insects to be crushed. They burned 3 cities before Earth understood the threat. They would have burned them all if not for Project Titan. Claire had read the classified history many times. In desperation, Earth scientists had created something new. They took volunteers from the military and enhanced them beyond natural limits. Stronger muscles, faster reflexes, bones reinforced with metal alloys, healing abilities that could close wounds in minutes. The first 12 Titan soldiers had turned the tide of the war. They had fought the Crethani on the ground and won battles that should have been impossible. They had saved humanity from extinction. But victory came with a price. The enhancements changed the soldiers in ways the scientists hadn't expected. Their senses became too sharp. Ordinary sounds hurt their ears. Bright lights blinded them. They couldn't sleep without nightmares. They couldn't live normal lives. After the war, the 12 Titans agreed to enter cryogenic sleep. They would rest until humanity needed them again. It was the only peace they could find. Decades passed. One by one, the cryopods failed. Equipment broke down. Systems crashed. 11 of the 12 Titans died in their sleep, their bodies finally giving out after years of frozen rest. Only one remained. Claire and Kevin reached the deepest level of the base. A single door stood before them, sealed with locks that hadn't been opened in 40 years. "Are you sure about this, Admiral?" Kevin asked. Claire thought about the message from Sentinel-7. 50,000 civilians. An enemy that showed no mercy. A coalition that didn't believe humans could fight. Open it. Kevin entered the codes. The door slid open with a hiss of cold air. The room beyond was small and dark. In the center stood a single cryopod, covered in frost. Through the frozen glass, Claire could see a face. He looked young, maybe 25 or 30. His features were calm, almost peaceful. But even in sleep, there was something dangerous about him. Something that warned you not to get too close. His name was Marcus Cole. He had been 23 years old when he volunteered for Project Titan. He had been the youngest of the 12 and the most effective. During the Crethony War, he had single-handedly destroyed an enemy command ship and killed over 200 of their warriors. That was 42 years ago. Claire walked to the control panel beside the pod. Her fingers hovered over the revival sequence. "The files say the revival process takes about 10 minutes, Kevin said. "He'll be disoriented at first, confused. We should have security standing by." Claire shook her head. "No, he'll wake up surrounded by strangers in an unfamiliar place. The last thing he needs is guns pointed at him. We do this alone." She pressed the button. The pod began to hum. Lights flickered on its surface. The frost on the glass started to melt, revealing more of the man inside. Claire watched as color returned to his skin. His chest began to rise and fall with breath. His fingers twitched. After 8 minutes, the pod opened with a soft click. Cold mist spilled out across the floor. Marcus Cole opened his eyes. They were gray, like storm clouds. They found Claire's face and studied her with a focus that made her want to step back. "Who are you?" His voice was rough from decades of sleep. "Admiral Claire Morrison. United Earth Command." He sat up slowly, testing his muscles. Steam rose from his skin as his body warmed. "How long?" 42 years. He processed this without visible emotion. "The others?" Claire's silence was answer enough. Marcus closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them again, something had hardened in his expression. "You didn't wake me up for a reunion. What's happening?" Claire handed him a data tablet with the briefing she had prepared. He read it in less than a minute. His enhanced brain could process information faster than any normal human. Vexari Dominion. 8-foot warriors. 4 arms. 300 ships. He looked up. "And the Coalition can't stop them?" "The Coalition doesn't know how to fight a war. They've had peace for 300 years. They've forgotten what real combat looks like." Marcus stood. He was tall, over 6 feet, with a body that looked like it was carved from stone. He walked to a locker in the corner of the room and opened it. Inside hung a suit of armor. Black and gray, built to fit his enhanced frame. He touched it gently, like greeting an old friend. "Where do you need me?" "Sentinel-7, border station in the Theta sector. 50,000 civilians trapped." Marcus began putting on the armor. It fit perfectly, as if the 42 years had never happened. "I'll need a ship. Something fast and small. I work better alone." Claire nodded. "Already arranged." Marcus sealed his helmet and turned to face her. Through the visor, his gray eyes burned with purpose. "Then let's go save some people." The stealth ship moved through space like a shadow. It had no lights, no signals, nothing that would give it away to enemy sensors. Inside, Marcus Cole sat in silence and studied the tactical data on his screen. 300, Veshari ships surrounded Sentinel-7. The station's shields were holding, but wouldn't last much longer. Coalition forces had lost half their fleet in the first 2 days of fighting. The situation was bad. Marcus had seen worse. He thought about the Crethony War all those years ago. He remembered the burning cities and the screaming civilians. He remembered the faces of his fellow Titans as they fought and bled and died. He was the last one now. The final piece of a project that should have been forgotten. But humanity had called, and Marcus had answered. He always would. The ship slipped past the Vexari patrol lines without detection. Its pilot was a young woman named Sarah Webb, who flew like she was born in the cockpit. 5 minutes to the station, she said over the intercom. No sign they've spotted us. Good. Keep it that way. The stealth ship docked at Sentinel-7 through a maintenance port on the station's underside. Marcus stepped out into a corridor filled with anxious faces. Soldiers and crew members stared at him like he was a ghost. A man in a commander's uniform pushed through the crowd. Daniel Cross extended his hand. Commander Cross, I'm the one who sent the message. Marcus shook his hand. Daniel felt the power in that grip, controlled but immense. Where's your command center? They walked through the station together. Marcus noticed everything. The fear in people's eyes. The damage from attacks on the outer sections. The children being led to shelters by their parents. Those children reminded him why he was here. The command center was crowded with officers from half a dozen species. At the center stood Admiral Korath. His 4 eyes narrowed with suspicion as Marcus entered. What is this? The Thelian demanded. Who is this human? Reinforcement from Earth, Daniel said. Korath made a sound that might have been a laugh. 1 soldier? Earth sends 1 soldier while my people die defending their borders? This is an insult. Marcus ignored him. He walked to the tactical display and studied the enemy positions. The Vexari fleet was arranged in a standard siege formation. Their command ship sat at the center, a massive vessel twice the size of any other. That ship, Marcus said. The big one. That's where their commander is. Supreme Commander Vexa, Lisa Grant said. She had been standing quietly in the corner, watching Marcus with curious eyes. He leads their entire invasion force. If he falls, their chain of command breaks. Marcus nodded. Then that's where I'm going. Korath stepped forward, his gray face twisted with anger. You cannot be serious. That ship is defended by 5,000 Vexari warriors. You are 1 human. Yes. You would throw your life away for nothing. It is suicide. Marcus finally looked at the Admiral. His gray eyes held no fear, no doubt. Only certainty. I'm not asking for permission. I'm asking for a drop pod. The room went silent. Everyone stared at the human who spoke about assaulting an enemy command ship like it was a morning walk. Daniel Cross stepped forward. Admiral, I vouch for this man. Let him try. Korath's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. He looked at Marcus for a long moment, then shrugged. Fine. Give the human his drop pod. When he dies, perhaps Earth will send real help. Marcus turned and left the command center without another word. Daniel hurried to follow. Is this really the plan? Daniel asked as they walked. Just you alone, against thousands? It's always been the plan. Titans don't fight in groups. We're too dangerous. Too unpredictable. Marcus glanced at him. Trust me, Commander. I've done this before. They reached the drop pod bay. A single pod sat ready, designed to punch through ship hulls and deliver soldiers directly inside. Lisa Grant was waiting for them. She handed Marcus a small device. Communication beacon. Once you're inside, activate this. It will cut through their jamming. Marcus took it and nodded his thanks. He climbed into the pod and began strapping himself in. One question, Lisa said. Are there more like you? More Titans? Marcus paused. He thought about his brothers and sisters who had died in their sleep, alone in the cold dark of that moonbase. He thought about the lie that would keep humanity safe. That's classified. He sealed the pod. The launch was violent. The pod rocketed across space toward the Vexory command ship, moving too fast for their weapons to track. Marcus felt the impact as it punched through the enemy hull. Then everything went dark. He kicked open the pod door and stepped into the enemy ship. Red emergency lights flashed. Alarms screamed. Vexory warriors were already running toward him, weapons raised. Marcus drew his combat blade. It was the only weapon he had brought. It was the only weapon he needed. The first Vexory reached him and swung with 4 arms. Marcus ducked under the attack and drove his blade through the warrior's chest. The alien fell without a sound. More came. 10, then 20, then too many to count. They filled the corridor with their massive bodies and their battle cries. Marcus smiled behind his helmet. Let's begin. Back on Sentinel-7, the command center watched their sensors in silence. They had tracked the drop pod until it hit the enemy ship. Then nothing. He's dead, Korath said. No one survives alone against a Vexory. Daniel Cross stared at the screen. He didn't believe that. Something in his gut told him that Marcus Cole was very much alive. 10 minutes passed. The Vexory command ship drifted in formation, showing no signs of damage. Then the distress signal started. The enemy ship began broadcasting on all frequencies. The messages were confused, panicked. They spoke of a demon in black armor, a monster that couldn't be killed. They spoke of a human. Korath's 4 eyes went wide. What is happening over there? Daniel smiled for the first time in days. Protocol Titan. Marcus moved through the Vexory ship like a storm made of flesh and steel. His blade cut through armor and bone with equal ease. His enhanced reflexes let him see attacks before they came. The aliens were warriors bred for combat. They had conquered 100 worlds. They had never known defeat. They knew it now. A squad of 12 Vexory blocked the corridor ahead. They raised their plasma rifles and fired in perfect formation. Marcus was already moving. He rolled beneath the first volley and came up running. His blade took the first warrior's head before the alien could reload. The others tried to surround him. 2 grabbed his arms with their powerful hands. Another raised a blade to strike him down. Marcus twisted free with strength that shouldn't exist in a human body. He caught the blade meant for his neck and drove it through its owner's skull. The 2 who had grabbed him died next, broken by strikes too fast to see .9 dead in less than 10 seconds. Marcus stepped over their bodies and kept moving. The ship was enormous, with hundreds of decks and thousands of rooms. Marcus didn't need a map. He followed the sound of running feet, the shouts of commanders trying to organize defense. They led him exactly where he needed to go. He passed through a mess hall filled with off-duty warriors. They scrambled for weapons as he entered. Some managed to arm themselves. Some even managed to fire. It didn't matter. Marcus killed 37 Vexory in that room. He left 3 alive on purpose. They ran screaming toward the command bridge, carrying tailies of the human monster who could not be stopped. Fear was a weapon too. Marcus had learned that long ago. His healing abilities worked constantly. Plasma burns sealed themselves within seconds. Cuts closed before they could bleed. A Vexory blade had pierced his shoulder early in the assault. The wound had healed completely by the time he reached the next deck. He was not invincible. He could be killed, but the Vexory would need an army to do it, and Marcus wasn't giving them time to organize. An hour after his drop pod breached the hull, Marcus reached the command bridge. The doors were sealed with heavy blast shields. Guards stood ready with the biggest weapons the ship carried. Behind them waited Supreme Commander Vexa himself. Marcus had seen images of Vexa in the briefing files. The alien leader was massive, even by Versari standards. 9 feet tall with scars covering his gray skin. He had led his people for 50 years and never lost a battle. "Human," Vexa called through the door. "I know, you can hear me. You have killed many of my warriors. You have earned my attention." Marcus said nothing. He studied the blast shields, calculating the force needed to break through. "Open this door," Vexa continued. "Face me alone, warrior to warrior. If you win, I will order my fleet to withdraw. You have my word." It was probably a trap. The guards would fire the moment the door opened. Marcus would face overwhelming force from all sides. He smiled behind his helmet. "Deal." The blast shield slid open. The guards raised their weapons. Marcus was faster. He crossed the distance before any of them could fire. His blade moved in deadly patterns, cutting through weapons and limbs and throats. Bodies fell around him like leaves in autumn. In less than a minute, he stood alone with Vexa. The Supreme Commander drew his ceremonial blade. It was long and curved, covered in symbols that marked his victories. He held it with the ease of someone who had used it many times. "You are skilled," Vexa admitted. "For a human. Your people are known as weaklings. Soft creatures from a soft world. Keep believing that." Vexa attacked with speed that surprised Marcus. The alien was faster than any Versari he had faced. His blade cut through the air in patterns designed to overwhelm. Marcus blocked and dodged and gave ground. He felt a cut open on his cheek, another on his arm. The Supreme Commander was good, but Marcus was better. He caught Vexa's rhythm after a dozen exchanges. The alien fought with skill, but his movements were predictable. He relied on strength and speed, not adaptation. Marcus adapted. He ducked under a sweeping cut and drove his blade deep into Vexa's side. The alien roared and swung wildly. Marcus twisted away and struck again, opening a wound across Vexa's chest. The Supreme Commander stumbled. His gray blood pooled on the floor beneath him. "Impossible," Vexa gasped. "You are just a human." Marcus stood over him. "I am what humans become when you threaten our people. Remember that." He drove his blade through Vexa's heart. The Supreme Commander of the Vexari Dominion died with a look of disbelief on his face. Marcus turned to the communication console. He activated the ship's broadcast array and opened a channel to every Versari vessel in the system. His face appeared on hundreds of screens across the enemy fleet. Blood covered his armor. His helmet was cracked from a blow he barely remembered. But his eyes were clear and cold. "I am one human soldier. One. I just killed your Supreme Commander and 500 of your warriors. Your command ship is mine." He let that sink in before continuing. "Earth has more soldiers like me. Many more. If you don't believe me, stay here and find out. Or you can leave now and live." He paused. "You have 5 minutes to decide." Marcus ended the broadcast and sat down in Vexa's command chair. His wounds were healing. His breathing was steady. He had done everything he could. Now he waited for 3 minutes. Nothing happened. The Vexari fleet held its position around Sentinel-7. Then the first ship turned away. Then another dot, then dozens within 5 minutes. The entire Vexari fleet was in full retreat. 300 warships fled from one human sitting alone on a dead commander's bridge. Marcus watched them go. He felt no joy, no satisfaction. Only a deep, familiar tiredness that settled into his bones. He activated Lisa Grant's communication beacon. "This is Marcus Cole. The enemy is withdrawing. You can lower your shields." Daniel Cross's voice came back, thick with emotion. "How? How did you do it?" Marcus looked at the bodies around him. Hundreds of warriors who would never threaten anyone again. "I just reminded them why humans are dangerous." The Vexari fleet vanished into deep space within hours. Ships that had threatened to burn worlds and enslave millions fled like frightened animals. They left behind their dead commander and a story that would spread across the galaxy. Marcus. Cole returned to Sentinel-7 on a shuttle that Korath sent personally. The Thelian admiral met him at the docking bay with an expression that mixed respect and fear in equal measure. "I owe you an apology," Korath said. "I called humans weak. I was wrong." Marcus removed his cracked helmet. His face was tired, but his eyes were calm. "You weren't wrong. Most humans are weak. That's why we made people like me." He walked past the admiral without waiting for a response. The station erupted in celebration as word spread. Soldiers who had prepared to die now laughed and embraced each other. Families emerged from shelters, crying with relief. The nightmare was over. Marcus avoided the crowds. He found a quiet observation deck where he could watch the stars alone. His wounds had healed completely, but some aches went deeper than flesh. Lisa Grant found him there an hour later. "The Coalition Council is demanding answers," she said. "They want to know how many Titan soldiers Earth has. They want numbers, locations, capabilities." "What did you tell them?" "Nothing yet. That's above my authority." She stood beside him at the window. "But I need to know. How many are there really?" Marcus was silent for a long moment. He thought about the moon base with its failed cryopods. He thought about his brothers and sisters who had died alone while he slept. "One," he said finally. "Just me?" Lisa turned to face him. "That's impossible. You're telling me one soldier defeated the Vexari?" "One? The enhancements, they weren't stable. The scientists did their best, but the technology was rushed. We started dying years ago. I'm the only one left." Lisa processed this. Her face went pale as she understood what it meant. If the Coalition finds out, if they learn that Earth's secret weapon is a single man, they won't find out. The lie keeps everyone safe. Let them think there's an army of Titans waiting. Let them wonder. Marcus turned to face her. "Fear is the only thing stopping the next war." Lisa nodded slowly. "Your secret is safe with me, and with Commander Cross?" "Him too. He understands." They stood in silence, watching the stars drift past. "What will you do now?" Lisa asked. "Go back to sleep?" Marcus shook his head. "I slept for 42 years. I missed everything. My friends dying. The world changing. I'm not wasting any more time. The galaxy is dangerous. The Vexari might come back. Other threats might emerge. Then I'll be ready." Marcus looked at her with something like a smile. "I'm tired of sleeping through history. I want to live what's left of my life." The next day, a Coalition transport arrived to take survivors to safer systems. Families lined up at the docking bay, clutching small bags of belongings. Children ran between their parents. Excited by the adventure of travel, Marcus stood near the entrance, watching the evacuation. He had traded his damaged armor for simple civilian clothes. Without the black steel covering him, he looked almost ordinary. A small girl broke away from her mother and ran toward him. She couldn't have been older than 5, with bright eyes and dark hair. "Are you the super soldier?" she asked. Marcus knelt down to her level. "Who told you that?" "Everyone. They said you beat all the bad guys by yourself." He smiled gently. "I had help. Lots of people worked together to keep everyone safe." The girl's mother hurried over, looking nervous. "I'm sorry, she just ran off." "Come on, honey, don't bother the man. It's fine." Marcus stood and nodded to the mother. "You have a brave daughter." They moved on, joining the line of evacuees. Marcus watched them go, feeling something warm in his chest that he hadn't felt in decades. Daniel Cross appeared beside him. "The Coalition is calling you a legend. Stories are spreading to every corner of known space. They're saying humanity has an army of gods. Let them say it. Stories have power. The Vexari have retreated completely. Intelligence reports say their warriors are refusing to fight any force that might contain humans. You broke something in them. Marcus nodded. Good. Maybe they'll think twice before invading again. They walked together through the station, passing crews who were already beginning repairs. Life was returning to normal, or as normal as it could be after an invasion. Admiral Morrison sent a message, Daniel said. She's offering you any post you want. Command position, training role, advisory board. Whatever you need. Tell her thanks, but no. I'm done taking orders. Then what will you do? Marcus stopped at a window overlooking the stars. Somewhere out there, other threats were gathering. Other enemies were planning. The galaxy was vast and full of dangers that the Coalition couldn't imagine. I'll stay close, Marcus said. Watch over things. If something bad happens, something that ordinary soldiers can't handle, I'll be there. Daniel studied him. Like a guardian. Something like that. They shook hands. Daniel felt the power in that grip again. The strength that could crush metal and bone. But he also felt the control, the gentleness that kept that strength in check. Thank you, Daniel said. For everything? Thank me by keeping the secret. Let the galaxy believe in Titan soldiers. Let them fear what Earth might unleash. I will. Marcus walked away, disappearing into the crowds of the station. To anyone watching, he was just another human in civilian clothes. Nothing special. Nothing dangerous. But Lisa Grant watched him go, and she knew the truth. He was the last of his kind. The final guardian of a species that the galaxy had underestimated. He carried the weight of humanity's greatest secret on his shoulders, and he did it willingly, because some things were worth the burden. A month later, a new warning began spreading through alien space. It passed from trader to merchant to spy, whispered in dark corners and shouted in public squares. Never threaten human space. Never harm human civilians. Because somewhere out there, the Titan soldiers are watching, and they never forget Dot in a small apartment on a quiet human colony. Marcus Cole sat by his window and watched the sunset. He was alone, but not lonely. He had purpose again. The galaxy might need him tomorrow, or next week, or next year. Whenever that call came, he would answer. He always would.